girl, the fields were mine. We played hide and seek for hours, raised our shadows among the pines. So offshore, playful and free, without a care in the world. I was one rich little girl, daydreamer, kidnap me, take me back, all the way back to them days, running around in a gown and a crown, barefoot. No mistake ever kept me late. We spent summers catching fireflies and winters on our skates. One big smile across my face. We used to dance our way to church on Sundays. Mama set the pace. Daydreamer, kidnap me, take me back, all the way back to them days, running around in a gown and a crown, barefoot. in a gown, barefoot.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Rodney, how are you?
Fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I've got the guys are mowing out in front. So if you hear noises, that's what that is. They're mowing the lawn and making it all nice and pretty for us out there. Golfing. Always ask you about golfing. Did you do any golfing?
You know, it's a transition period for me. So I only golf Saturday, and we're getting ready to relocate to our duck camp in Arkansas. So
That's and how long are you going to be gone for a while down there?
no, the first time just be the week of Thanksgiving and the 2 weekends connected.
Nice.
Other than that, and then the season closes for a week or two, and then we'll go back.
And do you, just the last question on that is, do you golf during the winter?
Not much. No. Not much. It's one of those things that you know, my hobbies kind of take over. So it's like, I want to stay married. So I'm like, try to do one hobby and stay married.
It's a balance thing, right? Yeah.
It's worked. You know, we've been married 27 years now. So we've got a good flow to it.
Look who's here. All right.
Hey, Angie.
Hey. Notice I was just telling Rodney, Ange, that there are no Christmas references whatsoever today. That was it. So I'm letting that go. Let's move on to that. Sometimes it's hard to think of stuff, you know, I mean, to sometimes topics aren't jumping off the page. This week I didn't have any problem and I kind of overloaded it. So Rodney and I are going to have some fun. First things first, let's talk about sheesh. Boy, got it.
Oh, there it is. All right. We are doing pretty good. Um, Green is good, red is bad, and we are looking here. Let me pull this up here. We're looking at the last quarter, and I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to change this to 6 months, so you'll see what kind of that gives you a little bit better indication of what we've experienced. Since mid to late October till now, is we are seeing a significant bump or comeback in our interest rates, which is phenomenal. One good thing to point out here, we have broken through this level of support, that 100-day moving average right there, which is pretty important. You see how the green goes above it right there?
Yes.
And now, since we broke through that, it should provide us a level of support to where we're operating and hopefully going to operate in this range and continue to see some gains back. This is a couple reasons this is going on. Fed did not raise our interest rates the last time they met, and our inflation come down a little bit, or didn't come in. It come in lower than expected, along with I think you talked about the CPI as well, coming in lower as well. It was just 1/10 lower, and we're expected to continue to see gains. So a lot of people are predicting that rate improvement will continue. But just a funny stat to go back here, and if you want to see what happened over the last 2 years,
wow,
there you go.
That's a mess.
That's exactly what that is. That is the technical term of what we're seeing right there is a mess.
That's when people are saying behind the scenes, we're in trouble.
Yeah. So this is the last quarter. As you can see, the last quarter, we're seeing some very good gains here, and hope it continues. You never know what happens, but looks like we're on a good path now.
Would it be fair to say that that our rates have been looking?
See how they just went back up? Ours have just been going down. There hasn't been that roller coaster where it goes up. We just see the one going down.
Well, that's where the excitement is, right? Going up, everybody's bummed out,
Yeah.
And then you stick your hands up like it's a robbery, Put your hands up. So we don't want to leave any questions hanging out there. First question is, and this is very important. Phil has a question. Do you eat all those ducks?
We actually do. We don't harvest. It's very rare that we'll harvest one that actually we don't harvest any that we don't eat. If we don't eat the type of duck that may be harvested, we have plenty of farmers and families around our duck camp that absolutely love for us to treat them with some ducks.
Okay. And then I've wondered about that too. And then Ange was asking, are we going to do a stream about bidding on a house for sale sometime? I'm happy to do that. The topic typically when it rolls that way is, and maybe I'll take a note on this, is how to bid on a house to get a good deal, to get a better deal. Because it's pretty easy, relatively speaking, to
just how to bid on one.
Yeah, how to bid on one is pretty easy, but what depends on what your intent is. And there's ways to figure out what houses you can get a deal on. And by a deal, I don't mean low ball on them or anything like that. Won't get into it too much. But I'd be happy to do a stream, Rodney, and I'd be happy to do a stream on that. And this is a pretty good time for it. So I'll put that down on the docket, and we'll figure out. Maybe we can just do a section on that. But it's easy to get caught up in the details on there. So, but I promise we'll do that for you. The first thing that we wanted to mention, and Rodney mentioned it only briefly, but the good news, and I think that it was just announced today. and Phil will tell me if I'm incorrect on this, but I believe that the CPI numbers came in this morning, I think is what it was, based on what the stock market's doing and what I'm hearing. I think it was this morning, but it came in at 3.2, like Rodney said. And so what people are thinking is that the optimism means that people are thinking that the Feds aren't going to raise rates. And that's the good news, everybody. I mean, if soft landing were possible, this would be part of the formula. And it looks like it's actually happened. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think the kind of the simplest terms that I've kind of seen it is that I don't think the Feds are definitely looking to that. I think even in the December meeting, the 13th, that they're not looking to raise. And I think that's why the market's responding so well. Is like the Fed's kind of saying they're not raising it. The inflation is getting closer to where they want it. And inside the core numbers is the housing and the rents and all that stuff. And those are particularly getting better to where it's going to help inflation get it where the Feds want. And then, they're even talking about, a little bit of a recession, and the Feds could be tempted to start lowering their rates before the projected end of 2024. So we'll see.
What's interesting is that they held on. That is good news. Yeah. And it surprises me, because we've been dealing with this whole situation for quite a period of time now, and time does pass by pretty quickly, but they were saying it was going to take a long time, and it hasn't happened yet, to get this inflation thing under control, if there is such a thing. But it seems to be working. But it's how slow it goes that is interesting, meaning to calm it down. It can flare up, seems like, pretty quick.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, in May, you remember we talked about in May was supposed to be our big turnaround time with the rates. May was supposed to be the month that things went back to the high fives, low sixes. Mm-hmm. That was a big prediction for May of this year. And obviously that didn't happen. So yeah, time flies, but it's still correcting itself for almost 2 years.
Yeah. And I was glad that the Fed, singular, was able to see that no response still had a response. It was all baked into it, meaning they stayed flat, and then it was reported that it was 3.2. Now, of course, that was happening behind the scenes, but you have to wait for a certain point to do your numbers, right? But I was glad to see that they could experience that. As these guys are smart, but anything that would motivate them to stop jacking things up, meaning hiking rates, just anything.
Yes, finally. I mean, it's pretty expected. I mean, I think everybody anticipates no raise in December again because things are going well.
Because things are going well and better than expected. And the stock market, I don't have my ticker open, but a minute ago it was up like 500. I mean, so, and they're attributing a lot of that to this is positive news. This is good news. Do you ever watch BBC, the British Broadcasting Channel?
I really don't watch it much, but I have to admit I've watched it a few times because I was wanting to get a little bit different perspective on the Hamas-Israel war, but not much outside that.
There is a guy, and I don't even know who the interviewer is, but there's a program on the afternoons at like 4:30, and it's called Hard Talk, and this guy, I wouldn't want to have an interview by the guy. I mean, he's like Mike Wallace on steroids. He shoots straight, and he seems really well informed. but he had the former Bank of England, the guy that ran the Bank of England on there, and he was doing interviews. The reason I bring this up is you'd mentioned people were predicting rates in the 5s and the 6s back in March and all these, and we've talked ad nauseum about Redfin and all these guys making interest rate predictions, and price hike predictions and things. And the guy, the Bank of England, he just flat said, that is ridiculous to try to predict any of that. He said, he basically said, everybody that's doing that is just making it up. And I just thought, gosh, that's the truth, and it's not a shot, you gotta, you have to take stock and figure things out, I think, but I said, man, that's Rodney's right there telling us how it is. He's making it up.
Well, it's just the nature's world and business world is like projections. Like, when somebody asks me, well, what do you project you're going to, your business is going to look like in 24? I'm like, well, I haven't met them yet. I don't know. You really don't know till after the year, but it's everybody's got to hand in those projections. So
you do. And, just like I do. And you start to respond based on what your predictions are, and your predictions, I very rarely have nailed it. I've done that maybe twice in 20 years, but that's it. So, all right. So on to this. So the CPI is good. The economy, believe it or not, being able to say things seem to be improving. I think that's a fair statement, isn't it? I was just looking at Angie's message.
Yeah, if inflation's, for me it is. Inflation's going down and rates are coming down.
Home flippers bidding on houses. Yeah, we'll have to talk more about that, Ange. So moving on, the next thing that kind of got my attention, and I've always been pretty transparent about the National Association of Realtors. They're kind of taking a beating recently. They've got their leadership has been replaced. It has recently, which is okay. Time for change. Change is good. But they're one of the best things they do is they lobby for the real estate industry. Let's just call a spade a spade. That's what it is. But what they're very good at, and if you were to have predictions coming from the National Association of Realtors, chances are pretty good they're going to be rosy because that's their business. And we've proven that. Rodney and I have been very transparent about the organizations that are going to put a positive spin on it. NAR happens to be one of them. But one of the things that they do really well is they do data, just like Zillow is. Those guys, they're my competition, but they are really good with data. But every year, NAR puts out a profile of home buyers and sellers, and that was released this week. And there's some pretty surprising things. What I wanted to talk about this with Rodney was who was buying this year. Do they look different than they have in the past? And NAR, National Association of Realtors, they crunched the numbers, and this is what they've come up with. There's 9 takeaways from the 2023 profile of home buyers and home sellers. And this is, I thought, was fairly interesting. Some of it's fairly obvious. The first one is going to be, did I do this? I did.
Yeah. Let me throw something in here before you start here. Think about this. After I read this article, I thought something just fell into place for me. Not that I didn't already know it, but we've said it a million times on here. The 3 things that we've been affected by home buyers is what? Affordability issues. Yes. From rates, housing prices, and their incomes haven't increased. People's income hasn't increased along with these rates and sales prices. Right. So with that being said, watch how the data folds out as we've talked about those 3 things hurting us all year, for the last couple of years.
So the things that are hurting us is going to be higher rates, higher prices, and income not increasing. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Well, right. Just our standard affordability issues in the country.
Okay. So we're gonna look at it this way. Let's look at it this way. So household income jumped among successful home buyers. I think that that's a tricky phrase because successful home buyers, meaning the ones that were able to close the transaction, I assume, by default, with houses being more expensive, wouldn't number one sort of be an obvious thing?
It is exactly right. Yes, it had to increase in order for them to purchase this year.
It did, and it's like
It is stating the obvious, but it's obviously the number one thing. I see why they put it on there. It's obvious, but it's obviously I think it's pretty good that they mentioned this because it's part of our affordability issues that we don't talk about a lot because we can't control what the employers pay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And all they're doing is crunching the numbers and reporting them. There's excuse me, there's no spin on this. It's just that
Right.
it was from 96 to 111. Okay, all right, there we go. I mean, 71 to 95. If you're going to buy a house this last year, you're going to have to be more highly qualified. So, number two, bing, the down payment for successful home buyers is the highest in 2 decades. Again, fairly obvious, but it's not a shot.
Well, but why is this? One, you're probably, when you're in the 2000s, past that 2001 mark, this thing goes significantly down because rates are so low. You would make sense to borrow more money and keep it in your pocket.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
mm-hmm.
I mean that's a perfect yeah.
Yeah, and so if anybody has struggled over the past year or so to buy a house because of pricing and things, part of this may explain it to you. Not that that's good news, but if you're looking for an obvious reason, here they are. Now, this one I thought was interesting. The number of first-time home buyers rose this year.
Yeah, that's absolutely a statistic we probably had to see, right? With affordability issues, honestly, it wasn't just the affordability issues. The lack of inventory killed this group so bad.
Yeah,
but they were getting outbid. So it's nice to see that they rose, 6% this year, which is pretty good.
And I was just going to say 6%. That's a bunch. That's a bunch. Because
yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, of all of the groups of the home buyers, first time home buyers is usually the biggest chunk.
Yeah, when it's down
think
into the 25s, it's a the 26 marks that you go from 40% or a little over 40% to the mid 20s. That's significant reduction in that group.
Yeah, and they say that the historic average, you can see it right there, a historic average is 38%. So we've got some growth to do, and that'll happen when things loosen up a little bit.
Right.
But 32 is better than 26, and again, positive numbers headed more in the right direction.
Exactly, it's rising in the right direction.
Yeah, and so number 4, the share of married couples in the housing market continues to ease, while singles, especially single women, rise. That's been a statistic that very few people, you'll see it reported once in a while, but I think the most common buyer is single women versus single guys.
It looks like they make up 19% of the market.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I didn't realize that, but I didn't realize that we went from 81% married couples to 59%. That's
now I meant when I said that they're the largest buyers, clearly I meant outside of the married couples, right? And I think that 19%, I'm going to be a little bit flippant here, but women tend to pay attention to their P's and Q's, and they mind things, and they do their books, more often than guys do. they pay attention to the details, so they qualify. And I bet you could probably attest to that. If you have single females coming in, getting their paperwork is probably a little, it's more straightforward than guys. I don't know, maybe not. I don't know.
It's I haven't really ever thought of it that way. But it's just yeah. I mean, it's wild that the family is decreasing, and the single women are increasing more than every other statistic. Like
And
they're more than double the single men.
I wonder what the reason is. I mean, I'm not seeing any, they're not giving any causal. I don't know what that is. I have to do more about that.
And maybe some women, they've all, it's always the claim they're smarter than men. I'm not.
There really is no question about that. You got no argument.
Yeah, I mean, we'll support that argument.
I would be evidence of that. Another notable demographic change is the share of buyers who have children under 18 in the home, and that would, no kidding,
going down again. That was one that's I don't get that, but
likely due to a higher share of older repeat buyers. 58 is a median age this year. An overall drop in birth rates and people having children later in life. This change means a different in neighborhood amenities. Interesting. This one was interesting. Multi-generational buying seems to be a sticky trend. And this, of course, is where you're buying a house and you're taking care of mom and dad, and that's where that ADU stuff comes in all of a sudden, that accessory dwelling unit. What?
I have seen this. This is something that I think is a trend in my area. We have seen this more often than we have in the past, for sure.
What? I have to bring this up. Did you know? Whoa.
Philip, we are not. You're gonna get us in trouble. We only say good things. We only say good, positive things about women on this show. We don't bring up anything in the past.
But I can see number 6. That makes sense to me because you know what? Assisted living and all that kind of stuff. People sell their homes and it takes every bit of proceeds to house those folks sometimes. So
this is a easy way to combat, your affordability issues, down payment issues, and things like that. Is having multiple people in one house.
Yeah, and it just I can't. Yeah, that makes sense to me, really. And so this one is an interesting. Distance moved and location seem to be boomeranging back from pre-COVID 2019 trends. So historically, buyers moved just 10 to 15 miles. In 22, that jumped at 50 miles, which I thought was interesting. Of all the moving going on in the country, most of it is less than 50 miles. So,
this is a trend that I would 1,000,000% agree with and is seeing locally.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's also too because prices are settling down, because in the last couple of years, a lot of people, most everybody moves according to they follow the money in one way or another, if you need more house, you move a little further out of town, if you want more convenience, you stay closer into town, but it costs more money, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I was thinking it was a lot driven back towards just people having the requirement to come back to work.
It's got to be. I've seen more than one article during the course of the week of these heavy hitter business owners, like Elon Musk is one example. Just one example, but there's a bunch of his ilk that are saying this remote work stuff. Jamie Dimon, he was one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's saying no, that's not. If you want to work from home, work for somebody else. Is what they're basically saying.
Yeah, we've had some local banks actually start telling their employers mortgage folks they had to come back to work, so work in the
Yeah.
office. So, yeah,
I have to admit that of the times, in real estate, you can choose to do both. But one of the more productive times in my life was when I was with Terry DeSelms and the DeSelms team when he was still at the office. And there would be, I think there was 8 or 9 of us total agents in the office. And we were closing like, I don't know, 600-700 homes a year. It was a bunch. But everybody would go into the office and there were some paid spaces and then other spaces where it just cubes you could go visit. But it was so active and so fun. You remember this with back with Jay Toms and Jason and all those guys. We'd go into the office because that was the place to be,
Yeah.
It was happening,
Yeah, I like the synergy of an office. And out of all the people I've managed, there's probably, when you talk about sales, there's probably a handful of salespeople that would really thrive from being at home, but the majority of them would do their best if they were in an office every day around other salespeople, the synergy from the office and things like that. But
and mostly and you know what? And after all those years, the lesson that I got from that is, all of the teaching, there's a lot of offices. I don't know how I got off on this track, but I'm going to finish the thought. It was remote working and synergy by coming back into the office. For all the training that these companies do, and there's a lot of training, and it's like how to do this and how to be more successful and, how to make calls and how to get your head beat in by somebody that doesn't want to get your calls. That's a lot of it. But what was the most productive thing for people that I've known over the years, including myself, was not how to do something, but are you okay? Meaning they said this and this is happening. Is that normal? And the other guy goes, oh God, that happens to me all the time. You'll be just fine. Keep pushing through. And it was the people that are getting hurt, or they're afraid that they're not normal, or they think they're doing bad when they're right on track. It's you're doing fine. Just keep going.
yeah, right.
Years and years. Interesting. Next one, number 8, 89% of home buyers used a real estate agent or broker to purchase their home. That's an interesting thing because with all the other news going on, that's still the case.
Yes, it is. It should be.
Yeah. And you know what? This is all I'll say about this. Because if anybody's watching this show after the fact and you want to give us a call, our contact for Rodney and I, we both work here in Williamson County, Tennessee, but we can answer it, most of your questions if it's in general in nature in real estate and lending for Rodney. There are people in this world that can buy a house and don't need an agent. They're perfectly equipped for that. Flippers, there's people that have had experience like that. I'm saying that's absolutely legit. There's those people. Not everybody needs an agent, but there's an awful lot of people that do. And so I'm just saying, that's all. That's all I'm saying. You don't have to have one. There's people that don't need them, but most of us do. Most people do. So, and here we go on the last side. Oh, Wendy does distant home buying statistics happen to include. Can you help me? What is that?
From which one? When does distant home buying statistic happen to include long distance real estate investors that increased with Airbnb? Let's see here. Let's go back to that stat and see what it says. It's just saying historically, it's I'm not sure if they if they're just talking about everybody's moving to city centers, I bet they pulled rentals out if they could, if I had to guess. But if I say this, I'll say this: the people I've done Airbnb, the investors like that, they're not necessarily buying across country. Like they are as local as I am. So I don't deal with, haven't had many that buy all across the country. More localized than for me is just kind of my experience.
Got it. Okay, so hopefully that helps on that.
So I'd say no, it's not a factor.
Okay. And so moving on to number 9 is going to be 89% of home sellers use a real estate agent or broker to sell their home. Now for that particular, I'm just kind of reading through it a little bit. I am going to tell you that for anybody that's selling their house, to try to do that on your own would be an adventure, just to say the least. And it would be interesting to see somebody that just wanted to test that theory out, because you got to figure out if it sits for 30 or 60 days, you got to figure out why, and that's where having exposure to it. I mean, for most experienced realtors, I can look at a house that's been sitting unsold for 45 days and tell you with some reasonable confidence of why, whether it's the condition or the price, whatever it is. And until you have somebody give you the right answer with confidence, it's a guessing game. And I see that, like, I'll give you a good example. And I'm laughing only because I'm not laughing at him, but I'm like, who's making these decisions? There was a house that was like $1.8 million or something like that. And it got pushed back into my feed because they lowered it by $1,000. $1.8 million, and now it's 1.7999. It's like, who?
Man, he's just opened up a whole new network of people with that 1,000.
That's what that is. That'll sell it, And I've had people in the past, years ago, I had somebody tell me they had a house up in Greenbrier, someplace up in there, and they hired me because their last broker wasn't selling hard enough. And I left. I didn't take the listing because I knew what I was getting into, because, anyway.
Before you get off this, I think you echoed the same thing above about this home sellers and the home buyers. There's a handful of people, in your area that would not need that service. That they can go out and sell their house and maybe even get the max dollar for it. But that's not the general public. That's not who we're talking to. That's not really our client, even, if that makes sense. When you talk about 89% of the people here, it's because 89% of the people on both sides, and it's probably higher than that. It's just 89% of the people, in my opinion, use the professional to do it. These other people, 7 and 4 down here, the others and the for sale by owners, it don't mean they went good. It just means they did them.
That just means, that is correct.
So if you're looking, at, we're talking to 89% of the people on the planet right now that would need an agent to help them buy or sell. Of course, there's going to be people, like you said, that can handle this transaction on their own, but that's really not who we're talking to today.
Yeah. And no, go ahead.
We can just do another YouTube show for them. It's, I don't know what it'd be called. Be like, but honestly, it'd be, how to finance it or something. You
Would
know,
just be your show because I wouldn't be. They wouldn't need. They still need you. I'll just
not
sit
everybody, but
downstairs
yeah.
and wait for it to go away. I think that, and this is all I'm going to say about this, is the goal. My goal as a realtor, let's say as a buying agent, is to help a buyer purchase a good, solid house for a good price, the best price that we can get them, and to avoid the hiccups, meaning the potholes, the problems, that kind of stuff. What people don't know is that there's a lot of stuff that lenders, title company, and realtors take care of behind the scenes, potential blow-ups, potholes, whatever you want to call them, that the buyer never even has to know about, because we only alert them if they have to get involved, you know. And there can be all kinds of, you have no idea.
Yeah, there's stuff on every loan. I mean, there's stuff on every loan, or I should say, every deal, every purchase. Not necessarily, it may not be attributed to credit or finances, but it could be attributed to appraisal, or it could be to the title on the property. Like you said, there's a million things that go wrong, that could go wrong, that these professionals make sure you're taken care of, and it's all dotted, crossed, and you go to closing smoothly. So
and so the final two thoughts on that is, when everything goes smoothly for the buyer, regardless of what's happening behind the scenes, all of a sudden our value dips in their head because, God, that was so easy. How come we're paying you so much? I mean, I remember somebody, it was not too terribly long ago, but we were selling our house, and we were able to sell it within a day for massively over what it was listed for. And they were pissed because we sold it so fast and effortlessly. And it's like, so you would pay more to lose money so that we had to work harder, and net gain would be less. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, you decide on something that you like, you want, and then when you get it, you're like, well, dang, did I lowball myself? Yeah, well, you can't have it both ways. It's like, you know, if that's what you decided on, that's what you wanted, you know.
Yeah,
I'd be happy if you got more, right? So
yeah, and they're typically pretty happy about that. Anyway, so I digress. We're done. Those are the 9 takeaways, and there's a. If you care, you can look up the highlights. I've got those here, but we won't go through those. But the takeaways for NAR is, I don't think there's anything in there except the married couples decrease that was a surprise. The fact that there was fewer home buyers at married couples, that surprised me. But everything else sort of made sense to me.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, so moving on to other news, and we'll just kind of touch on this really quick and start to wrap it up. You know that, of course, and I know we talked about this. We're going to be talking about this for a while. So last week they came to a decision on the that Sitzer lawsuit for
in Missouri.
Yeah, and it was like $1.8 billion, and nothing's settled, and so that's all up in the air. But what was it that we were predicting? And I don't know if we were doing this specifically, but people were talking, and I was like, that makes sense. When the first one falls, now they're all going to come out of the woodwork. You've set the tone for suing everybody and their sister. So NAR, National Association of Realtors, got sued by somebody else this week in South Carolina. I guess it was the 10th, November 10th, same week that they lost the other one. And so my bet, and I think that, if I'm not mistaken, even the company that I work for, the broader umbrella, United, got involved in this one. I think we're going to see this happen across the country. Do you?
Yes, and it's already, I think I know there's one in New York, and I want to say there's one in California already as well, that they're that they're already hitting them with. So yeah, these things are popping up like wildfire now, which I don't know. I don't know what, how they're going to end up doing this, but I kind of wish they would. I don't know anything about any, but I kind of wish they'd lump all this stuff together so they don't do 50 of these individual with 50 different states. But one thing that was pointed out was a little bit different, maybe in the California and the New York one. Well, actually, the New York one was over Manhattan, and it covered a 4-year period. And like it was already over 7-something billion in sales for like the first 3 quarters of the year or something. So Manhattan, whatever comes about now, and it's probably going to be it's probably one of the richest areas in the world right there as far as real estate goes. But one of them was actually suing the buyer's agent or something. It was opposite than the other one. They was trying to say that they didn't have a choice, like in a buyer's agent or something versus the selling, like how the sellers were. In the other lawsuit, this one was kind of flipped for the buyer's brokerages. So it twisted a little bit, but they're popping up like wildfire right now.
There was I thought something that was really interesting, and it's titled this way. We won't go too deep into it, but to echo off that lawsuit and the one previous, Realtor.com CEO, and we know that they're favorable. They're going to be positive spin. The world without buyer agency is a dangerous scenario. And this gentleman, he's the CEO of Realtor.com apparently, but he comes from Australia, and in Australia, they don't have buyer brokerage. Just like before the 90s, we didn't have it here either in this country. And what he said was that, oh, come on, I had it. Oh yeah. He said, and I quote, "I come from a country where I was never represented on the buyer's side. It was me dealing directly with the selling agent, who has a duty, as listing agents do here, to only represent the seller of the property. In the Australian model, by comparison to ours, you don't see flood maps and noise maps. We don't have those. At least I've never seen one. And you don't see the negatives about the property. You see all the positives because it's only one side of the market representative, and that's the people who are selling the property. And it's not to say that a lot of that information isn't available if you work hard enough to find it, but in the American model, the information is at your fingertips because it's our responsibility to make sure you know that.
Right.
I mean, and that's a lot of words to say. If this goes the way it seems, who knows? But if it goes back to buyer beware.
Right. And this is, I think the same article, the guy had a very good point. He's like, you can go and buy, a $5,000 or actually a $50 stock, and you're going to have to have representation for somebody buying that for you, like a broker.
Yes.
Like, so how on earth is our model to where you're going to go and buy $2 million or $1 million property or even a $300,000 property? No matter what the purchase price is, it's probably one of your largest purchases as that person, as a human, So, and you get no representation. But yet, if I want to buy a $5 McDonald's stock, I have to have representation. That to me, it makes no sense. I understand. I think the crux of this whole matter is people do feel like, everything I'm reading, people do feel like the internet and everything has made house selling easy, right? Because they don't do it. It's like anything else that you see and you don't do is like, okay, well, you just put it on there and it sells. Well, you've probably been right for the last couple of years, but that goes in cycles. It's like sometimes it's really hard to sell a house, and sometimes you just need to list it and negotiate some things. And there's such a demand that houses sell for themselves pretty easy. But you're still needing somebody to direct you through this. It's not just okay at sales. You're still needing somebody to go through the offers, tell you which is best, and do all this consulting. But I guess my point is that I think there's so much clamoring about trying to save money for a seller and a buyer that it's going to change something, because all these lawsuits popping up. I mean, there's going to be a change. I have no clue what it'll be, but something's going to happen.
And I'm not surprised. And I'm going to, how can I do this? I'm going to be really transparent, but I'm not going to be negative. Sometimes realtors, real estate agents, they're not doing themselves any favors by Instagramming where we're going to Bimini this weekend. Look at us having mimosas on a Thursday afternoon because we made so much money in the real estate market. And there's a lot, and the reason I bring that up is, and I don't even know what the word is, but one of the, and I don't happen to be one of them, but it seems like the first criteria of being a real estate agent is you have to get a Mercedes-Benz or a Lexus something, whether you're making the money or not. You're driving one of these cars that you're going, damn, that's nice. You know, it's like you're putting on airs on how much money you're making so you can look better to the client. And there's a lot of that vanity. And you stop me anytime, Rodney, but it's no wonder that people can come off with that. I'd like to live like that. You know, I'd like to live like that. Whether that's true or not is beside the point.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I would put the whole world into that category versus just
Probably.
realtors, because
I agree.
it's like, I'm not huge on social media, but you know how it goes.
Yep.
It's like everybody just posts their best stuff on social media.
Yep. And you're right.
And I'll say this, if I were going to work with a real estate professional, I kind of want to know they're successful, they're good at what they do, and a part of that's appearance. So I don't downplay it for that, but I know what you're talking about. See, I think there's a difference between like successful than me pulling up in a Ferrari. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a difference between, they know this person does a lot of real estate business. They know he's he should be in a high income bracket. But when you pull up and hey, I love Ferraris, right? I can't afford one, but I'd love to have one. But if I could afford one, I probably wouldn't be driving it to my sales meetings when I was going to go meet with either some potential clients or whatever. I would try to temper that a little bit, but.
And the fact is we live in Brentwood, so we see a lot of those cars.
Yeah, it's still, but for a real estate agent, or even for me as a banker, I think there's a limit on I don't need to run around looking like Rockefeller, right? I mean, I need to stay in my lane, so to speak, for me.
Yeah.
That's my opinion, right? So,
and I agree with you. There's just, man, I'll stop there. Okay, so here's a question for you, and this is going to be the last question of the day, and it's for Rodney, our money guy. It says, this is an article I picked up on CNBC, and it says, to buy a house in today's market, more people turn to an alternative lender, their parents. And it says nearly 3/4 of aspiring home buyers say affordability is the number one obstacle to owning a home. 3/4 of aspiring home buyers say the obstacle is affordability, number one. In today's market, the NEPO home buyers are tapping family money to afford a down payment. Maybe this is the wrong area for that. I don't know. Do you see that?
I mean, this is, it's funny. We structured one last night where two two siblings was buying, and the dad gave the gift to help. And absolutely, this is this is a logical resolution to help affordability issue. We keep talking about affordability issue. Home prices skyrocket, rates are skyrocket.
Yep.
And the only other piece of that puzzle is if your income hasn't increased, you're dealing with these other two with bare knuckles. So, you turn to your mom and dad, and if you're fortunate enough to have a mom and dad's had some savings, absolutely, they're helping all the time. They're making deals work left and right. It's truly is a blessing for a lot of the families that have it.
100%. I just thought that was an interesting. It was an interesting article to bring to the forefront because it falls into that same argument that we made a month ago, is with rates being high and property prices also being high, people are going to do whatever they have to do, including arms, mom and dad, whatever, to be able to afford homes. And there's going to creativity is going to be part of it. And that's just another avenue for that. So
they're, and then see the good parents, the smart parents are giving the kids the money. The other parents are in that statistic where they're living with them. And if you have to live with your adult children, it's probably going to be a problem. So,
so the final thought, I thought this is just a final thought for the day. We're down to like 2 minutes. Redfin, and this is, it was put out November 9th. Redfin is going to cut the workforce by 13%. And these guys are the behemoth of real estate. And they're going to stop flipping homes. Now, they've gotten out of the iBuying thing a long time ago. But they're going to stop flipping homes. So, and I think that it was, Angie had mentioned a month or so ago that these guys weren't doing any of the buyers a favor. They were snapping up homes and flipping them and selling for more expensive. Well, apparently they're going to stop doing that. So that's going to take off a little of the pressure, I would think, from home buyers, wouldn't you think?
Well, I think I don't think they stopped. I think the market stopped them. When I don't want them to pat themselves on the back too hard. They lost a fortune trying to do it because they're this is something that's just hard to do. I don't know.
If there's no profit in it, you got to stop doing it.
Right. And that's what they did. And that's for a lot of the Airbnb people and all that stuff. All that's come to a screeching halt. So yes, it is good. It's until that stuff gets going again, until things get crazy and appreciation's going crazy, all these other people are not going to be jumping in at the thought of a 1% appreciation or something like that. So we should have the normal startup without these people buying whole neighborhoods at a time.
Yeah. And I told you about that, that Progressive, I think was the name of them, that they bought this $1 billion area down in Laverne. It was quite the thing. I'll look for that article, but they bought up the majority of a whole subdivision and turned it all into renters and anything. Anyway, so I'm tired. I tell you what. So I guess we could finish it up this way. It's the CPI is good news. The market's happy. Even your charts are happy.
My charts are loving it. Hey, we are. Currently, we're at, back to that chart, we're at 76 basis points change for the day. And that's
for the day?
I mean, goodness gracious. Yeah, I mean, 76 basis points. If you think about on $1 million, that's $7,600 if you look at it like that. So,
holy mackerel. Yeah, geez Louise. That's all good. I'll tell you what, it's been a long stretch of, what did you say in the beginning of the summer, just dragging along?
Yeah, dragging along the bottom. I mean, we drug along the bottom and then some, and then they forgot we were down there and dragging along the bottom. But rates just drive the market. In the higher price range communities, and that's just what it's going to do.
I've got to add this. This is really good. Two things, because I love these guys. There's a great line in the movie where this is about the parents and the kids. Great line in the movie where a boy asks for money and the dad says, okay. And the boy asks, could I have had more? And dad says, you'll never know. Terry DeSelms had a saying for that. When we would have office meetings about all these fees and commission, that kind of stuff. And he said, I'm not going to put this on the record. Never mind. Let's scratch that. My mother-in-law always tune in next week. Maybe I'll have second thoughts and share it with you.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law always helped us out by not charging his realtor fees. Absolutely. Yeah. It's good to have that around. Rodney, that's
or a free realtor.
I don't know. Oh, yeah. It must be. You're always good at reading that stuff. Question. Are we going to wait? We got to catch up on this stuff. We're going to be remodeling our master bath, but do you think we need to be remodeling a guest bathroom as well? Probably did it about years ago, and it's in great condition, but maybe.
Well, first
that's
of all,
going to be 50-50.
Yeah, bathroom remodels are always always good. But if it's in really good condition, I wouldn't think so.
Yeah,
I would think you'd have to have. I don't know if you'd get the return if the condition. But again, we have the inside info on Angie's husband's is a contractor.
So the answer is going to be go ahead.
If the costs were down, but if it's in good condition, like she says, great conditions. I don't know if I'd replace anything in great condition.
I wouldn't either. When I'm selling a house, when I'm talking to somebody, this maybe never sold one before, they ask what's the most important thing, and I tell them first, it's the curb appeal. If you get people to love the front before they've entered, you've got half the battle won. If that pulls them in the front door over the threshold, good job. But beyond that, and this is going to sound sexist, and I know Rodney and I have a running joke about this, but inside the house, if the kitchen is killer and the master bedroom and master bathroom is killer, generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, the female side considers those to be important. If a guy has a garage, then he's good to go, he likes that other stuff, and this isn't 100%, but those are the things to focus on: kitchen, master bath, master bedroom. Everything else can be done in the ensuing months. So I agree with that. Listen, that was fun. I just wanted to, thanks for indulging me those questions, and I'll consider whether I'll share. Anyway, any final thoughts, Rodney?
No, good. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate Wendy and Phil and Angie with the comments there. And
it was great fun. Great fun. What a fun day. It's been a good day. Things are looking up, and it's just going to get better from here, hopefully. Or, maybe it's going to be.
Who knows? But we're going
to have to get ready for
here either way. So
we'll be on. See you guys next Tuesday. Bye, Rodney.
All right. See you.